no names, but if you were to describe the thing where you're standing up, what it would be?
A dike.
Right on, a dike. What is a dike? What are dikes for? Quick.
Block water.
To block water, to manage the flow of water, right? So this dike, the diking of this area began at the beginning of last century, but this particular dike was built up with the effort of the entire community to make sure that agricultural operations would be feasible, possible, and safe right here. If you turn around, look over there, wide extension of agriculture. All this land would be flooded if we didn't have this dike, right? So thanks to human ingenuity, you have this marvelous structure here which allows to manage the water. This, by the way, is the waters of what is called the Serpentine and Nicomecal rivers watershed. Now, Nicomecal, N-I-K-O, yeah, N-I-K-O-K-L-M, Nico. I always get it. It's almost as easier to forget as my children's name, but the Nicomecal and the Serpentine rivers, okay? So I was talking about how wonderful it is to us to have this dike that allows us to manage the water and make agriculture possible. However, tinkering with natural systems always have its own downsides and its problems, right? And one of the problems with dikes is that they displaced and modified what used to be the habitat for wildlife. And this area is very strategic from the point of view of the feasibility of wildlife. If you are a human being, you may not be so clear about it, but if you were a wild duck flying with your family all the way to Alaska and stopping here to feed, you would be pretty worried about what's going on. And you may say, who cares about wild ducks? Who cares about wilderness? We just care about human beings. But we have learned now that we depend from the biodiversity of this planet, and we depend on the viability of other biological communities just to make human life possible. And I don't want to dwell much more on this, but I think that you're pretty fluent on these issues by now. And we're going to revisit them in the course. So the important thing here is that as a result of, on the one hand, human ingenuity to make possible agriculture, and on the other hand, the expansion of the city, if you turn around, you see all that area was purely forested areas, now start pretty rapidly growing housing neighborhoods that will become more and more dense. They cannot continue to grow here because this is belong to the agricultural land reserve. It's land that is supposed to be kept for agriculture. But those areas will be more and more dense. You probably will see lesser and lesser forests and more extensions of pavement, cement, and a growth of water, impermeable surfaces for water. Anybody have an idea of what significance may have to multiply and extend the impermeable water surfaces in that slope? There's a little hill there. What may happen if we have too many impermeable water surfaces, impermeable to water surfaces over there? Any idea? The water will flow straight into the lowlands, and this issue we in fact are confronting already, just with those neighborhoods there. So you see the interface here of the urban growth and the rural space. We're looking at how to ensure the viability, the sustainability of agriculture, and agriculture that at the same time is challenged by the need to provide a habitat for the wildlife, mostly the migratory birds. So these issues needs to be balanced and treated and considered in the future developments of this area. This is what Professor Patrick Condon was talking about when he was talking about sustainability by design, the need to anticipate, to visualize in the future. So we need, on the one hand, more human communities, more dense, but those human communities more dense also need green space, need life around them. We need this agricultural land to be protected, and needs to, this land that is mostly, as you see, monoculture, surrounded by hedgerows. Hedgerows are sort of walls of biodiversity, where there's a lot of plants, diverse plants. The hedgerows provide habitat for wildlife, but many of these migratory birds just stop, you know, in on the fields and feed there and cause a lot of damage to agriculture. So the farmers are concerned because on the one hand they are under the pressure to produce food, lots of food, a good price, and make it a profit, and at the same time they are being, so to speak, affected by the growth of the urban areas, by this invasion of water that comes from impermeable surfaces, and on the other hand, by their obligation, they are the only habitat that wildlife will use. So it's interesting that this was a conflict during the last 10 years between environmentalists, conservationists, agriculturalists, and urban planners, and important negotiations have been unfolding there. And so now some farmers who collaborate with Dike Unlimited, which is an environmentalist organization supported by the federal government, those that collaborate with Dike Unlimited get compensated, get some compensation because they are providing habitat for wildlife at some cost for them. Any questions? Very quickly, before you go to Tegan, two important things. You heard Ron, the grandpa, talking about how the communities here have changed, not just by the expansion of the urban sprawl, but also this community was a farming community. There were between 6 to 10 dairy farms here, about 12 farms in total, just in this valley that you see here. There's only 2 left now. The Kitzels and the Van Houten, which is the next farm right there, the neighbors, and nobody else. And the farms that have survived, as you heard, you know, at great expense, tremendous capital investment, risk-taking, but there they are. It is part of this process of gradual diminution, reduction in the number of family farms, and lesser farms in number, bigger in size and in the scope of the investment. And finally, what I wanted to point out to you is that the dike here is built with very ingenious principles. Anybody have an idea how the dike works to control irrigation of those fields? Or do you think that it's just a wall that is there containing, and then when the water is up, you go over the wall and floods it all?
It goes to the ground.
No. Any idea?